Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is SprinkleBeard. I'm going to be your host for today. We stream over on twitch.tv/SprinkleBeard every day from 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So today's video is about artifacts. I get asked almost every single stream that we do about artifacts, and I get that there's so many choices. There's a lot of different opinions of what's good and why it's good, and unfortunately sometimes we upper players, we forget what it's like at the very beginning. So I figured, like, let's do a video to focus on beginning game artifacts of what is going to be best, or what pieces and what places will net you the best results. So depending on what you are aiming for, right? So if you have an attack champion, one of the most important stats that you want to focus on is getting their crit rate up to about 100%. And then from there, the obvious choices would be, well, I want to have higher attack and higher crit damage. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of the game, that is not really actually the truth at all. We will get into more details about that in a second. But so when we talk about endgame content, where your ultimate goals will lead you, speed and accuracy right now are the meta. Right now, the game is very heavily based around who goes first, and often whoever goes first is probably going to win the match, or they have the chance to win the match off of going first. So then it would be up to their accuracy and what skill you chose to go first with. Accuracy is what lets you land your debuffs. So when you're first playing through the game, any chess piece that would have accuracy on it is going to be one of your best friends when you're first playing through the game. Having those accuracy buffs will greatly increase your consistency of landing your debuffs on your opponent. The only character that you can start off with who does not care a thing about accuracy is Elhain. So it's kind of funny that on this channel, I often encourage players to pick Elhain as their starter. Kael, I would say, is a little bit better, and it all becomes opinion. For the record, it all becomes opinion. But Elhain is a little bit easier to build because she doesn't require accuracy. You can focus things on her like crit rate, crit damage, speed, attack percentage, and get those stats into a much better place sooner. Whereas somebody like Kael, who I do think is a little bit better, does require accuracy, and then he requires a buttload of accuracy to make sure that his poisons are landing. Because when you get up to those bosses, a lot of the bosses have a higher resistance, meaning you need higher accuracy. So that's a quick touch on attack champions. Let's talk on defense. And then I'm also going to include HP champions in the defense category. Obviously, defense percentage is going to look like the most valuable stat. Some defense champions or HP champions, you are going to want to stack up their crit rate and their crit damage so that they are a source of damage for you. This game has done a very good job, in my opinion, of having your defense champions and your HP champions feel like they're contributing very worthwhile damage. It's not ignorable at all. So if you do choose to take a defense champion and give them something like crit chance gloves, here you can see that I have speed and defense percentage on those gloves as well, just to make sure that she's as bulky as possible, as quick as possible, but she is still hitting the crit rate that I want her to. Do you have to build every defense champion with tons of crit rate? No, absolutely not. It's not a huge deal. It is perfectly acceptable to go with something like a defense percentage glove or an HP percentage glove. Just understand that their damage will be a little bit different, or even if they're hitting heavily. So my Sepulture here does hit quite heavily, despite her crit rate not being amazing. But I also know that her crit could be a lot. If I put her in crit gear, she might hit a lot harder. So with defensive champions and HP champions, it's up to you. Right now, the champions I'm showing off are much more heavily focused on being a backup damage dealer along with being a tank. But that's not always the case. There are defense champions that I have where the crit rate is kind of somewhere in the middle. I gave them some, as I upgraded their gear, a crit rate randomly fell on the very last slot. Or like these gloves where I was hoping it was going to land on the crit rate, and instead it landed on resistance. It's all right. Last but not least, we're going to talk about supports, and then we will talk about the artifacts themselves and the meta right now, what people are heavily using, and whatnot from there. So support champions in this game heavily focus around speed. So this is considered one of the best lineups, is having all 6 pieces of speed gear, because it's a two-piece set. We will go into that in a moment. But then having any type of substat in speed as well, and having your supports probably be as fast as possible. There are certain supports, so this is one that does need crit chance on him, or can benefit heavily from crit chance. It is not necessarily as big of a deal on supports. It does depend on the support's kits. This is where suggesting artifacts can be really difficult or really inconsistent for us higher end players to suggest to new players, is because there are so many options, and depending on what other gear you have, if you have boots that have 3 rolls into crit rate, you might not need the crit rate gear because you got really lucky rolls. And the vice versa is true. We might say you should start off with crit rate gear because we want you to be aware of how big of a difference that makes having that high crit chance, right? So, with that being said, we kind of talked over our attack champions, our defensive champions, so defense and HP, and then supports. This is a generalization, because just because my apothecary here has 146 speed does not necessarily mean that your attack champions can't have a close speed. There just might be reasons why, yes, you might want that, or yes, you might not like that. This Gensen, I'm actually trying to lower his speed at the moment, just to put that into perspective. All right, so let's now talk about all the different types of artifacts and their benefits or their weaknesses. So, in the game, there are a lot. We're not going to cover every single set. The big thing that I do want to cover in this video is that depending on the set, you can either have a 4-piece set, so down here on the left, where you require 4 pieces of that artifact set to be on a champion in order for them to gain the benefit of it. So the vampire set heals by 30% of the damage dealt. Or you could have a 2-piece set. So in this case, it's accuracy plus 40. So if you're having problems meeting that accuracy bonus, or getting to an accuracy that you've asked and people have told you this is a good place, then getting an accuracy set could really help you out. So which is better, 4-piece or 2-piece sets? Depends. It really depends. A lot of people would argue that the 2-piece set is better because you can fit them onto more champions. So even if a champion has 4 pieces of vampire, you could still fit in that 2 pieces of speed, right? Therefore, like, every champion can have at least 1 speed set. There are no 6-piece sets. It just depends on the benefits, right? Because some benefits are much different than others. So we have a life set, which increases the percentage of life that your character has. It goes off of the base life, not the additional life that a character has. Offense set increases the attack stat percentage. Defense percentage. Speed percentage. So that could be really good, but on a slow champion, it's actually not that great, but every little speed helps a slow champion, so that's up to you. Crit rate is a set value of 12%. So when you're first starting off the game, you can actually access the crit set very early. One of the complications for suggesting gear to people is that you do get a set or 2 when you start off the game. And at the time I'm recording this video, Ninja has his own champion being added to the game, and they're giving you an additional set of free gear for that up until about October 15th. Right now it's July 19th. So certain characters, you might not go straight to the crit rate there, or like crit damage, right? Crit damage is an amazing set in this game. It's a 2-piece set to increase it by 20%. But when you first start off the game, you are given a lifesteal set. That lifesteal set is so valuable. You just throw that on your starter. They'll never die. And a lot of the stats that are on the set, I do not have my original starting set. But some of the pieces are super amazing. And then some of the pieces just have like an HP percentage thrown in there. They're not legendary. They're all purple. But, you know, a perfect example of, you know, depends on what your champion needs. So a perfect example, this sword here, having accuracy, crit damage, and attack percentage. All of these things are good for an attack champion. But what about the rest of your gear, right? Does the rest of your gear get you that crit rate that you needed? And if the answer is no, well, then this sword is kind of garbage to you until you get your crit rate or your speed to a certain level that you want it to be at. You don't want a character that hits like a truck but is slow as dirt and not have a way to facilitate them to actually getting off their attack. Otherwise, they might die all the time. Skull Crown. Skull Crown. So, what do we recommend in the early game? What is good? What is bad? And there's actually a very simple answer. So, as you are getting free sets from the game, you will probably be equipping those to your favorite champions or most used champions. So, Elhain or whoever your starter is should probably get your vampire set. Even if it has certain stats on it that might not be super amazing, it's going to be 4-star gear. And obviously for each star of the gear, the more powerful it is. A very simple showing of this, right? Here's a 6-star weapon that has 265 attack. But if I compare it to a 4-star weapon... Oh gosh, I might not have any more 4-star weapons. Oh, I didn't plan this out very well. Anyways, if you compare it to a 5-star weapon, we'll compare it to a 5-star. It drops down to 225, right? So that's a difference of 40 attack. I'm assuming that if I drop down to 4-star, if the pattern continues, it'd be like 185. The damage in this game can scale very heavily off of your base stats. So with that being said, you absolutely want to get the highest star imaginable. So when you are farming through your campaign on normal for the very first time, you have a chance of getting gear. Here you can click on the gear and see what you can get. So you can get either a 1 or 2-star or a 3-star gear. When you're first starting off the game, all 1-star and 2-star gear is just garbage. It's just 100%. Don't keep it. Don't use it. Do not level it up. There's maybe one scenario that we'll mention shortly where you might want to keep a 2-star version. It's real difficult to justify. But let's say, you know, you want to experiment in the game yourself. That is perfectly fine. Let's talk over what is currently meta right now. And while you're in normal campaign, what gear could be really amazing for you. So things like weapons always have a flat attack stat as their main primary stat. When it comes to helmets, it's flat HP. And when it's, not gloves, shields, it is flat defense. So the big thing I want to stress here is that some of your gear is kind of locked into place. And the reason behind it is they want you to focus on getting your HP, your attack, and your defense, right? These are your primary stats. They're good on every single champion. Every little bit helps. So the game focuses heavily on that. When you ascend your champions, it usually only affects these 3 stats. In some cases, it eventually will affect another stat. Not the point of the video. So that's all well and good for your sword, your helmet, and your shield. Now let's talk about gear that is more customizable, right? This is where the game can get really, really fun or really, really complicated for most players. So here, we're just going to look at the 3-star gloves, right? I'm just going to keep this as simple as possible. Here are all the stats that gloves can have. They can be crit rate, crit damage, HP, HP percentage, attack percentage, defense, or defense percentage. So what stats here are good while you're on your normal playthrough? All of them. All of them. Pretty much any stat bonus you get at the very beginning of the game is going to feel very meaningful. In the normal campaign, you're fighting a lot of low levels, a lot of enemies that do not have ascended stars, or they are 1 or 2 stars. And even when you get towards the end of the campaign on normal, I think it's the stars actually don't really change. Okay, they get up to like 5 stars, so their base stats are a bit higher, but it's not significant enough, right? So what gloves are actually really good here? This is where, when you talk to certain players, if you talk to a high-end player, they will tell you crit damage gloves are really good. When you are starting off the game, they are not really good, because you're not having a crit rate that is consistent enough to get that crit damage off. When you fully upgrade these level 3-star gauntlets and they are crit rate, these gloves will give you a 30% crit rate boost, which is phenomenal. And then when they're 4-star, they give 40%, 5-star 50, so on and so forth. For new players, I would heavily encourage just try to farm up 3-star crit rate gloves in whatever set you are trying to get. Crit damage is not very helpful for you in the early game, unless you have a character that can consistently crit, has a guaranteed crit, right? Something like that. Or if you like to just really play a roll of the dice, maybe that would be a reason for you to go with crit damage. I wouldn't recommend it early game. Flat stats are usually considered bad. So the flat HP, the flat attack, and the flat defense are not considered good. Now, when you're talking about gloves, I don't know anybody who ever uses attack percentage gloves as well. Again, people are more concerned about getting their crit rate or their crit damage up when you get towards endgame content. So attack percentage gauntlets are not great. Does this mean, though, when you get your vampire set, right, or a counterattack set, or 2 of the sets you get very early on in the game, if you have attack percentage gloves, does that mean you should just throw them away? No, because they're probably either 4-star, or with Ninja's event, they're 5-star. You may not want to just trash a set of gloves just because they're attack percentage. Those gloves will be fine for now. Use them until you get other 4-star or 5-star crit rate gloves. There's no point to throwing away a 4-star glove to put on like a 2-star crit rate. 2-star as well, your crit chance will be so low from them, I wouldn't even encourage it. The next thing would be, if you have a defensive champion or support champion, they might benefit from HP percentage or defense percentage. This will help increase their longevity, and if they don't specifically need a crit in their kit, so a perfect example is that when you're playing through the game, you get a character named War Priest after you beat the first main boss that you come across. So she only has 1 attack, and the scaling on her attack is very powerful. So with that being said, there is a reason that you could give her crit rate and she would do a lot of damage. On the opposite end of that, though, it's more important that she just survives. So you might want to focus more on giving her a defensive percentage or a HP percentage glove, which will help her survive a lot longer. Between the two, HP would be a little bit better on War Priest, but defense right now is king. The damage reduction you get from it, and very few enemies in the normal and hard campaign ever ignore defense. So very easy. But because it's a support champion, you want them getting off their skills as much as possible. So the ideal version would be a substat of speed. And we will get into substats very shortly after we're finished covering over the main stats on equipment. So that kind of covers for gloves. For the most part, you're going to want to go with crit rate. Especially like in normal and hard, you can more aggressively beat content just by attacking most of the time. Like, you can use a little bit of strategy. You don't really have to. You can pretty much brute force your way through normal and hard with well-built champions. So if you use crit rate gloves on everybody, you'll be fine. If you feel like a character's dying a whole lot, yes, switch over to like HP or defense percentage gloves. For the beginning, this video is not talking about 5-star and 6-star equipment. That is not the focus of this channel at the moment. Maybe in the future I will make a video talking about 5-star and 6-star equipment. But for you as a new player or a free-to-play player, getting the right crit chance or getting the right stats in the right places is going to be much more eventful. I'm going to skip over armor for the moment because boots are a lot simpler and will also have some of the biggest impacts on you. Again, we're only going to talk about 3-star boots at the moment. Speed. Boots are the only item in the game currently that can have a main primary stat of speed. With that being said, yes, the rest are garbage. HP percentage, attack percentage, defense, and defense percentage. It is very, very hard to ever justify any of these at a low level. Does this mean that every single boot you get, again, let's talk about that vampire set, you get a boot that has HP percentage, attack percentage, or defense percentage as the main stat? No, they're still worth saving, especially if they do have that speed substat. Again, we'll talk about substats in a moment. There'll be other reasons to keep those boots for now. Understand, though, that when you start farming 3-star and 4-star equipment, speed is going to be your only option. And there is certain gimmicks that people will say. Somebody will tell you attack percentage boots are fine if they have crit rate and crit damage and speed on them. They're not wrong, but that is a much later game content thing. And while you're just starting off, your character will probably die more frequently by not being fast enough to take their turn, rather than having this like enormous attack stat. And again, if you have a way to protect them, if you have a way to speed them up, let's say you pulled an early apothecary who can speed everybody up, you can get away with attack percentage or defense percentage. Understand, though, then you're bound into the concept of, well, now I need apothecary, or I need somebody who can speed up or affect turn meter in order to help. So, let's talk about armor. Armor is one of my favorite ones to talk about, actually. So, for the longest time of me playing this game, I was always told the only armor worth keeping is attack percentage, defense percentage, and HP percentage. And even attack percentage was considered a low priority. That HP and defense, right? Increasing your character's survivability is much more valuable than having them deal extra damage. Now, there are cases where, like, let's say in the arena, if your characters are faster than the opponents, attack percentage goes a lot further for getting that one turn kill rather than, or I shouldn't say one cycle kill versus defense percentage or HP percentage. I'm here to tell you that accuracy and resistance can be very, very good in normal. Accuracy will probably be your best friend in normal and in hard. I know it's going to feel weird to give up things like HP percentage, attack percentage, or defense percentage. Again, your vampire gear set, the very first one that you get that is 4-star, it doesn't really matter what the main stat is. You probably just want to have it on your starter character. Or if you're trying to be really min-maxing, right? You might give your starter 4 pieces, and then you might give sniper 2 pieces, and then once you get into the campaign far enough, you can farm more pieces of it, and you'll have 2 characters in vampire gear. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm trying to say, though, is that learning how accuracy works in this game, the more accuracy you have, the higher the chance of your debuff landing. So we're going to look at Kael, because Kael is considered one of the best starters in the game, and I also have mentioned him earlier in this video, so it's much easier to just talk about him. So, this is 6-star Kael, and he's fully ascended. What that means is his stats are going to look much more impressive than your 3-star Kael when you are looking at him. However, we're here to look at his kit. So here he has a 40% chance, or when you fully book him, 45, 50% chance, of placing a 5% poison debuff. So the way that the game works is, when Kael uses this attack, his A3, or Disintegrate, when he uses Disintegrate, once it hits the enemy, the game is going to do 2 calculation checks instantly. Number 1, what is the chance of this happening, and did it happen? Yes or no, right? So because it's a 40% chance, it's actually quite low. Now it is 4 different times hitting, so you have a decent chance of at least one of these proccing, especially when you get up to 50%. That's when you get more consistency of like 2 to 3 times happening. So that's the first check. Should the debuff even land in the first place? Then the second calculation that it checks is, what is Kael's accuracy, 0, versus the defending character, so let's say another Kael's resistance, 30. Who should win then, right? Should the character resist it? Now, there is always, from what I understand, a 3% chance for your buff to land no matter what. And likewise, there is always a 3% chance for your enemy to resist it. So understand, you could have 500 accuracy and your opponent might resist it. That is just a chance in the game that can happen. That also might just be some gossip that I heard. I actually haven't looked it up on the official raid website, so I probably should do that. Understand, though, that the more accuracy you have, the less chance your opponent has to resist it. And almost all characters start off with about 30 resistance. So, to counteract that, and now let's look at his A1. He has an 80% chance, or eventually a 90, and then a 100% chance of placing a smaller poison, which looks like a Deus, debuff for 2 turns, versus the greater poison, which is 5%, to land. Even if if your Kael has a 100% chance of this poison landing, understand your opponent could resist it if you have no accuracy on your Kael. So this is why in this video we are going to focus very heavily on you could, and this is up to decision making and it depends on substats, which we're right around the corner to get into. That accuracy could be really amazing because on a 3-piece set, even on a 2-piece, 2-star set, I don't know why I said 3-piece, 3-star piece or a 2-star piece, you do get over top of their resistance, their base resistance. So, with that being said, this would be a great time for you to understand how important accuracy is. What's even better is you can get it on one piece of equipment instead of hoping for a bunch of substats to happen to give you those better stats. All right. Substat time. Let's talk about substats. So, we're first going to look at a legendary piece of gear here. So, in this game, the hierarchy from greatest piece to weakest piece, and I know that's a little strange to go because you're going to be starting off with the weaker pieces, but it is legendary, and then epic, and then rare, and then I can't show you the last two, but it would be green, which is uncommon, and then eventually a gray border. Wait, actually, maybe I have some old pieces on some old champions. Here we go. Gray is probably what you're going to be encountering the most, and that is perfectly fine. And then green would be your next one. So, let us talk about gray pieces of equipment. Gray pieces of equipment will only have their primary stat revealed. Also understand that the primary stat is going to get the biggest buff up as you upgrade the equipment. So not everything else is going to upgrade as you upgrade the equipment. Only the main stat will go from this 14% to 15%. So on gray equipment, none of the substats are revealed. After every 4 levels of upgrading a piece of equipment, one substat will reveal itself on gray equipment. So the next new one here opens at 12, and then the last one opens at 16. It can be any substat. So it could be flat HP, it could be flat defense, it could be flat attack. Certain items can only have certain stats, though. So a perfect example is a weapon can not have defense or defense percentage as one of its substats. Likewise, a shield cannot have attack or attack percentage as one of its substats. Then it gets more complicated when you go into rings, amulets, and banners. That's going to be its own video. Right now, we're just focused on the main artifacts and main artifact sets. So, with that being said, gray equipment is technically the worst. Is it still usable? Yes, if it has the right primary stat, absolutely you can use it. I, in general, would not upgrade a gray piece of equipment past 8, maybe 12. And the reason why is that when you are upgrading equipment, so I'm going to turn off this filter real quick, go back on here. When you are upgrading any piece of equipment at all, you have a higher chance of upgrading it, or a certain chance of upgrading at levels 1 through 4. So that's no problem at all. Once you get to about level 4, you have a chance to fail. And the higher rank equipment it is, so a level 6 star, a 6-star piece of equipment, will have a higher, or wait, is that only 5-star? That's only 5-star. Sorry. 6-star piece of equipment will have a higher difficulty of upgrading. So I will use these 5-star boots, but here you can see that you have a medium chance. So if I try to upgrade them, sometimes you get lucky, ignore the tournament posting, or sometimes you will fail. Just understand that the upgrade cost goes up with each successful level that you, well, not successful, with each level up that you get on the piece of equipment. So when you get to gray pieces of equipment, you don't want to be spending $10,000 to $12,000 silvers to upgrade them to a higher level. It just becomes very inefficient and not a great use of your silver. There are times I have had silver pieces of gray pieces of equipment. I have had gray pieces of equipment that I have rolled to 16. Actually, I think I can still show it on my Flesh Terror, if I remember correctly. Because some of the pieces just rolled things in the right spots. I don't see him. I must have re-equipped him, which is good. Oh, there he is. There he is. So a perfect. He rolled resistance, he rolled speed, and then he got attack percentage. All of that was good for my Flesh Terror. It does just depend on your champion and what rolls. In general, though, it's not great to roll it up to 12-star, or 12 plus 12. I rolled this up to plus 12 because it was a 5-star piece, and he was one of the first champions I just put in 5 pieces of speed gear to make him as fast as I possibly could have. So, let's move on to green equipment. Because I kind of gently talked about this earlier, that gray has no substats revealed, and then as you upgrade it, you'll reveal each substat below it, right? So, what about green pieces of gear? And I'm just trying to see if I have like a level 4-star green something. Admittedly, from the looks of it, I do not. So we'll just have to do it on this. So, green pieces of equipment will have 1 substat revealed. This means that when you level up to level 4, there is a chance, well, with green it's going to be a guaranteed, but when you get other artifacts up to level 4, for every stat that they already have revealed, instead the game gives you a bonus. So this 1 represents that the green substat that was revealed was crit rate, and that when I rolled it to level 4, it got a bonus to crit rate. This is how you can make the most out of your gear or have the best results. So if you were farming the campaign and you were trying to farm up speed boots, you might want to see a substat of accuracy or crit rate. If it was a different piece of equipment other than boots, you might want to see that speed substat as a main stat. These 3 will be your primary pieces that you're always looking for as a substat if they're not already up in the main stat. So the first roll has to be on green, has to be on the first stat, on the only revealed stat. Then, as you get to 8, 12, and 16, the other substats will get revealed. So, what a lot of players end up doing for consistency, I did not mean to click all the way out, for consistency, they will keep blue pieces of equipment because you have 2 stats that are revealed, in this case, a crit rate and an HP percentage. So as I upgraded this to 4, one of these 2 revealed stats rolled. So let's say it was the HP. And then as I got down to 8, the other one rolled. So in this case, it rolled on crit rate. So each stat got upgraded. That was great. Then as I kept upgrading it, speed eventually revealed, and then accuracy. So then what about your epic gear, right? So here is the example of that rare. 2 stats are not revealed, so 4 and 8 will have a chance to roll into each of these. And then when you get to epics, you have 3 stats revealed. So now you have a chance for 1 and 3 of these stats rolling. So the better the substat is, right? If it's not flat HP, if it's not flat defense, you have a very good chance of getting a good roll and then it being super meaningful by landing on something that you really need. So if we just jump straight up to legendaries, right? They have all their stats revealed. This means you don't have a guess of if you're going to have a bad stat randomly show up in that 12 and level 16 slot. In this case, I got very lucky. I got a triple speed roll on this weapon, and then an accuracy roll, which actually makes this weapon quite amazing for a lot of different reasons. But having a heavy speed and then accuracy as a backup roll was quite outstanding. Most of the community likes to have more rolls under the same stat. Sometimes it happens where you get really lucky and you get all 3 rolls on the same one stat, and that can be great. Sometimes you have the exact opposite and it rolls 1s across everything, and there's a lot of players who do not like that. It just depends on what stat you need before you equip the champion with it. Now, when you're starting off in the early game, that's not going to matter as much. Just equip your champions with the right pieces of gear and then upgrade them as you have the silver for it. You won't be able to be stupid picky at the beginning. So using things like Grace 3-star gloves are going to be amazing until you come across a certain thing like a gauntlet that is 4-star and blue and has speed and accuracy as substats. So let's talk about that. What if the main stat is flat HP, but the substats are all really good? Use at your own risk. Most players are going to say it's garbage because that main stat is garbage. The main stat is not going to be beneficial enough to you. However, if the substats are speed, accuracy, and crit rate, and when you roll it, you roll a triple crit rate or double crit rate because you take it up to 8, that might be your decision, right? Your risk and reward. You can choose to upgrade it, and I would go to like +4, +8 to see what one or two of the rolls are. But if it's a gray piece of equipment with, flat HP, no, it's pretty much garbage under all circumstances. It would be very hard to justify on any champion ever using that. So, now that we've covered over substats and we've covered over main stats, let's talk about the sets directly, right? So, instead of telling you that speed and accuracy are the best and they're the only ones worth going after, so you get to levels 5 and 6, farm the crap out of those stages. So when you get to stage 6, you would probably spend a good hour or 2 just farming 3-star speed boots for every single one of your characters, and then you would come over here to the gloves and farm 3-star crit rate for all of your characters, and then bam, they are set up with both speed boots, and the crit gloves, and then they would get the set bonus of 12% to their base speed of the champion, and then you're super set up to play the rest of the game, right? Honestly, yes, for the most part, that actually is true. Let's talk about each set real quick that you can get here, and then I will just show you where the other sets are, but that is more advanced, so it's not the focus of the video. I do want to show, hey, this is where you can get these pieces, or hey, I saw this piece and I don't know where to get it. Where do I get it from? I want to point you in that right direction. So Kaerok's Castle gives you the HP set, the life set, so an additional 15% HP. On supports or HP champions, this is great. On defense champions, you actually don't want that. Right now, the current meta is on a defense champion, you would actually want to give them as much defense and as little HP as possible. And the reason why is that the AI, the enemy AI, will auto-target the character with the lowest HP stat on your team. So, having a defense champion that you want taking a lot of damage because their defense value is so high, so they're really not taking much, this would not be a great set on them unless you want them to be an unkillable juggernaut that lives through everything and is the last person to survive. Next, the attack percentage. Obviously good for attack champions. You would not want to put this on defensive champions. Some supports, their damage is based off of attack. You'd have to read through their skills. This is not considered one of the best sets early. Late game, you might use one 2-piece set. Defense percentage, obviously great for defense champions or your support champions. Or if you have an attack champion that you just need to live longer and you got really good pieces here. So again, you get that 3-star gauntlet and that 3-star shield. The gauntlet was crit rate and the boots were speed. you are set. You might want to run that. Or you got a 3-star accuracy chess piece, and you're like, you know what? I want to get this accuracy down for my character, for my Kael. My Kael needs it. Or if you're like running clan boss, the defense stat could be really great. Crit chance, this is where I suggest most people gear up, especially a new champion they get, right? So when you get your sniper, your crusader, and then eventually when you're opening shards and you're getting your very first, you wouldn't get Lua, but let's say you get your very first judge, getting their crit rate up to feel good will be very, very meaningful. Oh, that's right. Judge has a really cool passive. The point that I'm trying to make, though, is this crit rate could be very, very smart, because if you get all 6 pieces, that's a 36% increase. Plus your base 15, that puts you up to 51%. That means at least half your hits are being critical and will be noticeable on pretty much any character that you're playing as. Accuracy, this is kind of one of the best bang for bucks because it's a flat stat increase. So getting that increased accuracy is phenomenal. Again, this could be a way that with your Kael, if you start off as Kael or Elhain, on this channel at the moment, we don't encourage Gallic. Gallic needs, he needs a boost. He needs an update. Right now, he's unfortunately just the worst starter, and unfortunately, like real unfortunate, everybody tends to agree with that. But accuracy, this could be your first 40 accuracy. That's probably all you need to get through normal. You probably don't need to go, an accuracy set with an accuracy chest plate, unless you really want to see your Kael land poisons every single time. In which case, yes, you might want to go with an accuracy chest plate, and then get the set bonus from here. Wouldn't be a terrible idea. Understand, though, that there's other champions. So earlier we did talk about War Priest. She has a freeze on her A1. I want to be very clear that it's only a 15% chance of happening. All the accuracy in the world does not increase the 15% chance of happening. 15% is set, and then it will check for the accuracy afterwards. So don't get caught up in loading your War Priest up with tons of accuracy. I would say to just skip over her accuracy, because she would be much more beneficial in speed or having defense or life, so that she's able to keep everybody else up. Speed would probably be most important on her regardless. Speaking of speed, stage 6 is where you can first get your speed set. This is also where I feel like the game first starts to get hard for a lot of players. So this might be a good area for you to grind up anyways, to just level up champions or level up food. We have a different video on food, so go see that video if you're curious. But might be the first good place to stay here and farm. And again, if I was to recommend anything to people, which pieces of the speed set should I get? If you go with like the weapon and the shield, that is the easiest way by far to just get a 3-star weapon and a 3-star weapon and a 3-star shield, so that you can move on. However, in terms of optimization, so that you feel like your champion is just that, right? A champion, a hero, a true villain that can just tear through things. I would recommend, if you're going to farm, do the harder farm. Get the 3-star crit rate gauntlets and the 3-star boots, and you will feel a lot more powerful. Is there ever a reason that you would want to farm the boss, right, versus doing the individual stage? Yes, the boss has a chance of dropping green and blue gear much more consistently than the stages. However, the boss can drop any piece of equipment from the stages and any star ranking. So with that being said, I don't encourage it. I think you'd be wasting a lot of energy, because it costs more energy to fight the boss. The consistency, I need to get a 3-star boot, that goes way down. So the consistency goes, plummeting down. That would be difficult to encourage. And then last but not least, you actually don't get the most experience from fighting her. You get the most experience from fighting stage 6. Do you get the most silver from fighting her? No, you actually get the most silver from selling shields off. Shields have a much higher chance of selling better than a lot of their equipment from the boss. So for those reasons, no, I wouldn't really ever encourage fighting the boss specifically. Stage 7 here is resistance. This could be great on healers. If you are tired of your War Priest getting frozen, getting a defense down, something like that, there is a big reason that you might want to farm up the resist set. Like always, it would be get get speed boots, and then maybe you would go with a resistance three-star chest piece, and then those 2 stars would give you 49 plus 40, 89 resistance right off the bat. Nothing will probably ever CC that champion again through the rest of normal. And if it is, that's that fluke 3% chance we talked about. Is there anybody that you would absolutely want to do that on? Not really. In all honesty, no. Again, we've mentioned Apothecary. I'll just show him off real quick. Apothecary is one of the best healers that you could pull very early. He has a speed boost that he gives to everybody, so the more resistance that he would have, the less chance for him to get like stunned, frozen, feared, sleep. Yeah, sleep. Right? So the higher resistance he has, the more turns that he can pull off, and then the more turns he can pull off, the more often that he's healing. His hit can be critical, so that's where you would want those critical chance gauntlets, or you might give him like a resist set and then a bunch of crit chance sets to try to make him this unstoppable healer. Have I done that? No, I have not. I'm just saying it's possible, or if you're struggling against a boss, like this boss right here, who can poison your whole party, and then he has 2 aids that poison you, there is a reason that the resist set comes right before this boss. However, you can get the vampire set. Vampire set's probably going to better offset the poisons that Bad Alcazar does. It is up to you. It is up to your champions. Same thing, too, if you're War Priest, right? You don't want to give your War Priest a vampire set. That's not going to be amazing for her. But there's your first vampire set that you can get. And specifically when you get to stage 9, there's 2 champions here that if you ever get them early, War Maiden and Berserker, I think they are both really good for getting you through the normal and the hard campaign. War Maiden would be really good in certain sets like the vampire set, the speed set, the accuracy set, or if you want your War Maiden to hit like a truck, the crit chance set. Anyways, here's the destroy set. You can destroy an enemy's maximum HP by 40% of the damage you deal when you hit them. So their bars will get their health bars will get these stripes on it, which I think is a really cool concept. Unfortunately, it never really comes into play in the early game. And there's only like 1 boss in the game that I know everybody does use a destroy set for. Other than that, that destroy mechanic is not really well used in the game. Where it's great is against characters like Bad Alcazar, who are constantly healing. Or if you go into like the dungeons, the spirit dungeon, you could keep reducing her max HP, which would cause her passive of healing 50% every turn to heal for less, or the less maximum HP she has, eventually you could probably burst her down. It's few and far between, though. It's not the greatest, not the greatest of sets at the moment. Counterattack set, it sounds amazing. It's good on certain champions, and again, on week 2, or right now while the event's going on for Ninja, you do get a free retaliation set, and there are 4-star and 5-star. So your week 2 is a 4-star set, and for Ninja, I believe it's a 5-star set. This set can be great. It's good on certain champions. Really, you want to consider the way that the counterattack works. Your champion will always use its A1. So a perfect example here is I would not want this hard scale to be in the counterattack set, and has a 25% chance, so that's real low, of decreasing the speed. That would be good. If it lands, if that speed lands, that would be good. For the record, it's not bad at all. I'm not going to show off the legendaries, which would be obviously a lot better for counterattack sets, but let's show off somebody like Saurus, who attacks all enemies back. Can be really amazing in a counterattack set. There's other champions like Sister Militant that also in a counterattack set could do you a lot of good on your account so early. Moving on, we are going to get onto the Fury set. Plus 5% damage for every 10% HP lost. Again, I don't know any champions that currently rock this. It's a shame because the set looks really pretty. There's probably certain champions that could take really good benefit of it. The biggest issue, though, is that it's a 4-piece set. It would be nice if, like, each piece, you know, was like 5% damage for every 10% loss, stacks up to 20, and then you could do that 3 times, giving a 60% damage boost. And then there are certain champions that you could cheese and make it work. Again, this is not a very well-liked set in the community right now. Last but not least is the Curing set. Deals a 20% bonus heal. Now, as I understand it, so we looked at Apothecary earlier, this is the one set that kind of flips everything on its head. All the other sets, as I understand, add up. So instead of him healing for 35%, that Curing set would put him at 55%. From me talking to a lot of people, I have heard that it is only 20% of that 35%. So right now my chat's joking around. They're like, Curing set is the best for selling. And yes, unfortunately, right now, the way the game is balanced, the Curing set is just best for selling. It is just, unfortunately, unusable. Now, does that mean that there is not a single piece of Curing set in my artifacts? And the answer is no. I actually do have a Curing set somewhere in here. Where's that little tiny cutesy heart? Here's the shield. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I know I have a piece. Unless I've equipped it recently. Is it further down than I realize? It is further down than I realize. There are certain ones that are worth keeping. So this is a 6-star, obviously, but attack, crit rate, and accuracy, those are all good substats to have on a weapon. So there are times where you might come across speed, crit rate, and HP percentage on a shield. It does not mean that every shield is garbage. You might get your first speed boots in this section, and they are 3-star speed boots. Use them. Just because the set is incorrect is not nearly as important as getting those stats in the right places, or how we're going to teach on this channel. Right now, that is how we teach on the channel, is that we are not necessarily set focused. So here is a perception set. We care much more about the right stats, being in the right places, giving your characters the most consistency. And then as you get to the point where you can grind indefinitely, or, you know, depending on your interest of the game, maybe you love grinding, you can grind as much as you want after that. So that covers all the campaign sets, right? So what other sets are there in the game? We're going to first go through some of the obscure sets, and then we'll go back. Clan Boss has his own set of sets that are hidden in him. Some of them are HP regeneration sets. Some of them are shields at the start of battle, stuff like that. So understand your Clan Boss has another value here. I heavily preach on this channel. As you can work on a Clan Boss team, work on a Clan Boss team, because this is where you can get blue shards and blue books. I get that question quite frequently, and Clan Boss is usually, hey, you have a you know, this chest will drop 2 of the following rewards at random. Yes, you only have a 2 in 15 chance of getting those, but that's a lot better than a 0 in 15 chance of getting them. So there's a reason that you want to work on your Clan Boss team early. You can get some good pieces of gear, specifically like 4 and 5-star pieces of gear from Clan Boss, which can be a great way for you to level up some early champions. Or if there's a champion where you're like, I just got my Berserker, right? So we talked a little bit about Berserker. That's his brother Slayer, Berserker. Hey, I just got Berserker. What should I equip him with? And I don't know. Give him some of those rewards that you're getting from the Clan Boss. Give him some of that 5-star equipment, and you can see how good it works, or how good it or how poorly it performs. That's just up to you and what your interests are. Next, you can get certain pieces of gear from the arena. So right now, the arena just reset. So here, if I come to tiers, it has another 6 days and 13 hours that you can see in the lower left-hand corner. This has its own sets. Admittedly, I almost never get great pieces of gear from here. But again, I want to show off that this is where you can get more books and more of the high-end shards. Some of these set bonuses are really, really great. I have just not had the luck of relevant stars dropping for me to use consistently. I think when you beat the second campaign level, you get this axe and this shield, so you'll get to see how good the set actually is. It's a good set. It's just unfortunate that you can't consistently farm it somewhere else. And even when I do get it from the end of the ranking period, a lot of times I get a lot of garbage pieces. So that's just unfortunate. But that's the second place that's really obscure that you get pieces of artifacts from, or if you're not sure where you got them from, check your arena, check your clan boss. We are going to gloss over all of the following sets. I just want to show that these 3 dungeons, your Ice Golem, your Dragon, and your Fire Knight, or FK, and then Ice Golem's IG. This is where you can get a bunch of your other sets. The huge advantage of going to the dungeons, they only drop blue equipment, right? Blue and above. So you actually do have a better chance of getting much better equipment by coming here. When do you want to come here? I would wait until you have at least one character level 50. If you get real hard stuck on a boss, you could try coming into these dungeons. I have a different video gently glossing over what champions are great in which dungeon, or what each dungeon fight looks like, so you can go to that video to have a better understanding of what to expect. Eventually, I will make very direct videos on each dungeon. But for Ice Golem, he can drop you things like the life set, offense, defense, critical rate, resistance, retaliation, reflex, which is a new set you guys haven't seen, but a 40% chance to reduce the cooldown. I wish that would stay. That's really frustrating. There we go. 40% chance to reduce a random skill on skill cooldown. This is like when you get hit, you have a chance for this set to proc. That can be amazing. Unfortunately, though, again, because it's a 4-piece set, the only champions that I've ever seen run it are certain characters that have like invulnerable skills or AoE revives, something that's a massive skill. The curse set here has a 75% chance to place a heal reduction. Again, I don't know any champions that actually run this, so unfortunately this curse set is cursed. Just sell it. And then lastly, the taunting set. The taunting set has a chance to provoke. There could be really good uses for the taunting set. I do not have enough taunting pieces in order for me to ever encourage it, because I have not gotten to try it and see how well it actually works as a set. Next, we'll talk about Fire Knight. Or what? Fire Knight. We're talking about Dragon. We're going to talk about Dragon. So here you get your better versions of your accuracy, your speed, your lifesteal, your destroy set, and then that's where it ends. Everything else becomes new and interesting. So the toxic set has a 75% chance of placing on a poison debuff. So certain characters like Apothecary benefit greatly from some of the sets with really weird stats like this, or maybe that anti-healing, right? You might slip that on your Apothecary because you're like, well, I use Apothecary everywhere and I'm tired of getting healed against. But more often than not, you'd want to use the much higher set on this toxic set. Or for certain clan boss teams, they'll put very interesting characters in a toxic set. Frost. Frost is a very good defensive set, so when you are struck, has a 20% chance to place a freeze on the opponent. This will literally cause them to be like stunned in a sense. They do get a defense bonus from being stunned, from being encased in ice. However, they don't get to take any more actions. So it's a really good set for certain tanks or certain characters that like to provoke. 25% chance to place the sleep debuff. I don't know anybody who uses the daze set because sleep is so easy to disrupt. And then again, characters like Apothecary, when they fire out randomly, they have a bad chance of always hitting that character that's asleep, or that's how it feels. So yeah, not a lot of people run the daze set on anybody. It doesn't necessarily mean sell it right away, right? If it's a 4-star or 5-star crit chance gauntlet with those speed and crit rate, or speed and accuracy substats, you better be using those daze gauntlets. I'm just letting you know how good is the set itself and how meta is it right now. So at the moment, it's not highly used. Avenging, I think, could be a really good set. I've never heard people talk about it versus the counterattack set. I'm assuming that because the counterattack set is it'll counterattack any damage. not any damage, any hit, that it is more popular than the Avenging set. I'm sure, though, that eventually somebody's going to crack the code and there's going to be some amazing champion, or like, let's say your Void champions are probably going to get crit more often than not compared to like any other champion. Or if you're running at the very beginning of the game, right, everybody's using their starter who's a Kael, an Elhain, some magic champion. If you put your Saurus in the Avenging set, you know, he's more often going to be crit because of that that affinity, oh my gosh, advantage. Stalwart set, I think, could be really great. Again, I don't know a lot of people who run it, but depending on if you have a champion that you use to counter certain other champions, Stalwart could be really good, but 30% reduction from AoE attacks. And last but not least, let's talk about Fire Knight. Fire Knight has what everybody considers to be the best sets in the game. However, not all of his sets are the best sets in the game. So again, here he has Fury, damage increases as HP decreases. He has the Curing set. Immunity for 2 turns. This means that your character cannot be debuffed, I believe, for their first 2 turns. This is really, really good in the arena. Not very good in the like campaign, dungeons, or doomtower. It's kind of a specifically arena thing. Shield, HP ally shield for 3 turns. This is really great when you're on your HP champions and you take them into the arena. This could be fine in certain things like the campaign and dungeons. Again, not often seen. More often we see crit damage is considered amazing. Frenzy, I don't know anybody who uses Frenzy at all, just because it's only a turn meter boost for every percentage of HP lost. I'm sure that there's a character that like heals itself every turn, or could take really good advantage of this. So like I'm thinking like somebody like Doom Priest, who heals their party every turn, and her taking extra turns would only benefit the party. Soul of the Drakes could be good about this. But the problem is it's for every 5% of HP lost, so unfortunately the risk and reward, you'll end up taking a lot more damage than getting benefits from. Regeneration can be great, heals by 15% each turn. This set seems super amazing. Unfortunately, like counter heals or burst damage can often make it not appear great. And then we have the stun set. Stun right now is considered one of the best sets in the entire game, especially on an AoE attacker. So like Elhain over Kael. So Elhain has 2 AoE attacks that hit everything. The stun set on her could be super amazing. It's not very encouraged right now on like Elhain specifically, but it's something to get you thinking what character would greatly benefit from a low % chance of a stun happening. There's your answer. Last but not least is Savage. Ignores 25% of the enemy's defense. Is just massive. Absolutely massive. So this is where you can get all the sets. Rings, amulets, and banners, they do not have set bonuses. The only like kind of new rings going on right now you can get in CVC tournaments, which is clan versus clan. That's more of a higher level thing. So like let's say when your account level is like 50 or higher, that's when it will be more useful for that video to be in place. I did want to just kind of glance over, though, that the Spider Queen is where you would get the ring, amulet, and banners. We will not review those in today's video. I'll make my own video for Spider and for the artifacts that she drops and, you know, what stats you're looking for on those. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Or if you want to support us over on Twitch, come follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/SprinkleBeard. You can either follow me there, or you can even feel free to subscribe, which financially supports me, which I would greatly appreciate and would make you probably a more attractive human being. I don't know why those two things go hand in hand, but it does. When you financially support me, you become more attractive. Anyways, until that next time, thank you for watching, and ta-ta.